Welcome to Sustainable Packaging with Cory Connors, presented by Atlantic Packaging. I'm your host, Cory Connors. In today's episode, I connected with founder and partner of Circle by OPLN, Mr. Dave Ford. After years of effort, we were finally able to connect, and he has an exciting announcement to make. I'd also like to thank our sponsors, 3M, Specrite, and Lorax EPI. We couldn't do this show without you. I'm so excited to have my friend, Mr. Dave Ford, on from Circle by OPLN. Dave, we've been trying for a very long time to get you on the show, and I'm so excited because today you've got some big announcements that you made yesterday, and that we can finally share those with the sustainable world. Let's talk about it. Welcome.
Cory, so excited to be here. I really appreciate it. And we have been talking about this for a very long time, and it's about time. So I am excited. We got a lot of really powerful things to discuss. So yeah, let's do it.
We met years ago. I don't even remember where we met, but it was at Waste Expo in Las Vegas. I think, I don't even know how many years ago. It was one of my
probably
first
5
ever,
years, probably 5 years ago.
Yeah, 5 years ago, first ever speaking engagement. And I got to listen to you and one of your partners speak, and it was just incredible. But let's talk about your background a little bit and, what got you into this kind of a... So Dave, a big announcement yesterday, and you can finally tell us about the details of this. We're excited. Let us know.
Well, thanks, Cory. And thank you so much for being a part of that. Yesterday, we launched the Legislator Guide for Circular Policy, which is one of the core outputs that have come out of our Circle program. And for those of you that don't know what our Circle program is, at OPLN, 3.5 years ago, we started taking legislators to visit implemented EPR and deposit return systems around the world. And we've been to British Columbia 3 times. We've been to Quebec twice. We've been to Oregon twice. We've been to Europe, to Germany, and to Lithuania. And we're visiting these implemented systems. And we started taking the value chain initially. We started taking companies from across the packaging value chain. But our first legislator trip, we took Chief of Staff for Senator Ben Allen, who was the lead author for SB 54 on a trip to Europe. And it was just really, really powerful. And for all the different ecosystem actors to learn from her and vice versa. And then we took another 5 on the next trip. And then we took 15. And then we took 25. And so 3.5 years later, we've taken 75 elected officials to visit and learn firsthand, experientially, from folks on the ground that have implemented these systems. That's how the Circle program was born. And we did this huge event, that was 1,000% supported by Atlantic Packaging this last September at the Sea Change Conference in Burlington, Vermont. And we brought there was 26 elected officials and staff from all around the country. And then there's 75 total people and 50 people from across, let me start that in the middle. And 50 executives in the packaging value chain and NGOs and experts were all together to do an exchange on EPR to help these legislators learn. We had 5 of the 7 sponsors from the first 7 states that have implemented EPR or that have passed and are now implementing EPR there. And it was just really incredible exchange.
Amazing
and one
event.
of the key output, amazing event. And the key output that the legislators in states that are considering for EPR coming up in the future, they've come to us, the legislators, and they were like, can you please create something for us that's like a 101? Like, this is rocket science. Like, we have these guys drinking from the fire hose from 2 days. And they basically intervened with us and asked us to simplify this and to help them understand where all the stakeholders in the ecosystem sit, to give them a resource that they could then use to educate other people, other elected officials in their caucuses. So that's what gave birth to this legislator guide. And for the last 2.5 months, we have been like head down sprinting. And yesterday we presented it. So super, super excited.
An excellent event yesterday, very impressive. And I think the issue we've talked about many, many times with EPR and with these laws that are coming out to create a more circular world, a more sustainable world, however you want to say it, have been getting people together that have influence to make a similar decision. And I think the problem is we've got so many varying directions and so many different types of thought processes. And what you and your group have done is said, hey, let's get together, let's talk about this as a team, and then communicate now before we get into the boardroom and the legislative offices to make these laws that oftentimes turn out so vastly differently. So I want to commend you and your team for really putting together something that's impressive. The issue with politicians is they don't understand packaging oftentimes, and which is why our president from Atlantic Packaging, Wes Carter, is on the board for SB 54, so he can tell them, hey, this isn't a good idea, this will be more efficient, that kind of thing. So that's been very helpful. Hey friends, we are going to take a quick break to thank our sponsors. Please be sure to support them. Walk down any store aisle and you'll see it. Plastic blister packaging, built to protect products but destined for the landfill. Paperform by Atlantic Packaging changes that. Made from recycled and renewable fiber, Paperform is a molded paper solution that replaces traditional plastic blister and clamshell packaging with something better. Strong, precise, and fully curbside recyclable. Designed to run on existing lines and tailored to each product. Paperform gives brands the protection and presentation they need without the plastic waste. Paperform, molded protection made from paper. Learn more at atlanticpkg.com/paperform. What if packaging could replenish the planet rather than polluting? That's the vision behind Sway, an innovation company replacing plastics of the past with next-generation materials, and it's made with seaweed. Sway packaging performs like flexible, low-density polyethylene, but it safely composts into healthy soil. The material is made from a combination of regenerative, renewable, and compostable ingredients, with seaweed as a key component. Every bag helps support thriving ocean ecosystems and a circular economy. Learn more at swaythefuture.com. Every shipment is a choice. You can send more plastic into the world or send a message. New Earth Approved is the verified catalog from Atlantic Packaging's A New Earth project, featuring packaging solutions for a healthy planet. Every product in the collection meets a clear standard. It's curbside recyclable or backyard compostable, made from renewable resources and harmless to wildlife and ecosystems. These are the materials shaping the future of responsible packaging. Ready to perform, ready to scale, and ready to ship. New Earth Approved, packaging that protects products and the planet. Explore the catalog at anewearthproject.com/shop.
Yeah, totally. And I think Wes and other leaders in the ecosystems really leaning in and educating legislators is absolutely mission critical. And I mean, the thing to think about with legislators is in a lot of states, they're part-time, right? So they're not, a lot of states, they have to have a second job because they just don't get paid enough to even like support their family. So the amount of time that legislators have to devote to any topic is minimal. Like, for example, we have a legislator that we've worked with a lot that the same year she introduced EPR for packaging, she introduced 59 other bills, including a school lunch program and like minnow protection in the northern part of her state, right? Like, so they need to know so much. And I've been working, in EPR, DRS, circular policy, US specific, like really deeply for the last 3.5 years. And we've done a lot of global work as well, but I'm learning something new every day. The nuances are so vast. I mean, even if you get the most, EPR experts, they're still learning every single day because 100%. These systems are still coming online in different ways. Even Europe, who's like light years ahead of us, they're still, tweaking and changing their systems, and it's reflective. There are just new reflections that come, consistently, right? It's an always learning situation. So how do you make sure legislators are understanding rocket science? Because these laws, if implemented the right way, can be really helpful. And if not, implemented the right way, could be really challenging. And they need to work for them to, they absolutely need to work.
They have to. And I think the issue is, like I said, they don't know packaging. They don't understand how packaging companies work and how consumers purchase items based on their packaging and how the recycling systems work. And I think your education efforts have proven to be so valuable. So I want to commend you for that. Do you want
Thank
to
you.
talk
And
about, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I just also want to say, like, I have an incredible team that helped bring all this to life and that helped bring this guide to life. My co-founder and we're a small team, but they absolutely just totally, we have leaned in such a big way to bring this thing to life. And I think the really interesting thing, Cory, is just how many stakeholders there are,
Right.
across the ecosystem. You have the legislators in the states that have already passed that like submitted to this guide. I mean, basically what we build is a repository for positions to help, the next legislators that are trying to understand this just get their head around it, whether they're in states that are in the implementation process or whether they're states that are maybe considering putting something forward. Can I show you a screen real quick? Let me.
So if you're not watching, Dave's going to put up his website here, which is circlenetwork.co.
It is circulenetwork.co. Yes, sir. And it's the Legislator Guide for Circular Policy. There's an EPR 101 section that Rep. Sidney Jordan from Minnesota, who passed the Minnesota law, who was the chief sponsor writer of the Minnesota EPR law, helped us exponentially with this. She really got into this. Her personal story involved an incinerator in her neighborhood. That's what her constituents asked her to work on. And what that ended up being was the EPR law in Minnesota. So we wanted this guide to be through the lens of a legislator. And she had run through this gauntlet before. And we asked her, what tool can we build that would have been exponentially useful for you 4 years ago when you started on this journey? And so her guidance was incredibly helpful. And I think that's where it's helped land something that we feel like can be really useful for so many parties. But there's an EPR 101 section that goes through like key terms. But the screen I wanted to show was this submission page. So we had 30 submissions so far, and we have another 10 to 12 coming in the next week, but from, actors all across the ecosystem. So, we have the 7 sponsors from the 7 states that passed EPR. We have key environmental NGOs like Ocean Conservancy. We have circular policy experts like the Recycling Partnership, who was also our technical partner. Atlantic Packaging gave us a submission. Very, very grateful there. Like the Association for Plastic Recyclers. So we have representatives from the consumer brand sector, multi-stakeholder coalitions, materials, so paper, glass, aluminum. We don't have paper yet, I should say. We do have glass, aluminum, and plenty of different stakeholders from the plastics ecosystem. But like the Alliance of Mission-Based Recyclers, who's located in Eureka Recycling, they were very helpful with the Minnesota bill. So it's just been pretty cool. And this is the only repository of stakeholder positions. So I'll just show you like Washington State, just to give one example. So this is Representative Liz Berry and McKenna Morgan. So the state representative from Washington that led this process, and McKenna Morgan, who is the lead bill writer, and her 3 recommendations were: don't reinvent the wheel. Like, you can learn from other states that have already gone through this process. And her second is have a partner. Like, she worked with McKenna Morgan from the city of Seattle to help her navigate this, to help her write the bill, and then to be engaged. She's saying, like, if you're a legislator coming to this, you cannot just hand this off to a lobbyist. You have to be in all the meetings. You have to be, kind of front and center.
Great points.
I'll give one other submission, like the Recycling Partnership. Their 3 points are, implementation of existing EPR programs in the U.S. demonstrate the importance of timing and sequencing, meaning like there's a sequencing. You should do a needs assessment in your state to understand how much material is coming into your state, to understand what extended producer responsibility can do for you, and kind of how to structure that. And that material should go through certified responsible end markets. So that's like where they're actually criteria for where the end materials go before they're bought. At the end of the at the end of the process. And then policymakers should include a full range of packaging and printed paper material in the definition of covered material. So like basically like how can we harmonize the definitions, across the board? So I don't want to go too much deeper, but just wanted to give like a taste of kind of what this all looks like.
I've had a lot of people ask me for this information and say, hey, is there a spot where it is? Is there, and the answer is always, well, not really. There's, the SPC's done some good things. They've put together some lists and things. But I think what you've done is just really consolidate everything and make it easy for people to see, and for, like you said, people that are looking to do this in their state, kind of give them that base to start on. Well done.
Yeah, thank you, my friend. I feel like it's like has the opportunity to be the most useful thing we've done since we've started this effort back in 2019.
And you've done a lot since then. So this is to say that this is the most useful is very impressive and exciting. You want to talk about sea change some more, or what do you want to talk about next? I'm so excited about all of these things. We have a lot of topics to cover.
Yeah, well, I feel like that sea change and this outcome that I just showed you is like beyond our wildest dreams of what could come out of sea change, like the usefulness. And again, there was pretty much every ecosystem actor was in that room at sea change, so they saw this happen organically. And then the feedback that we got, around across the value chain, like one of the big pieces of feedback, we were going to do a report. And we had a lot of companies come to us and say, this can't be a report. This has to be like a living, breathing document because things change so fast. So if you do a PDF report, a year from now, a legislator could pull it out of their inbox and it could have totally irrelevant information, which is why we decided to do a website. So it was the process has been just really interesting. And also just to make sure that this has been neutral across the board, because there's varying opinions. We want to make sure that even opinions that are not pro EPR should be a part of this as well, right? Yeah. Like it's because that's what the legislators need to consider. It's like, not every actor out there is like a huge fan of EPR, and we need to be able to communicate that across the board. We're also rolling out next year an anonymous feature for our members to be able to put anonymous feedback that legislators could read. Yeah, and we're not going to let them be state specific and like have like lots of negative feedback about specific states, but just to give like, a lot of companies are, need to be very protective about what they're going public out with. But like, there's a lot of insights that legislators would really like to have. So we're going to roll that out. And then we're just going to be constantly iterating this tool. So Sea Change was a home run, and this being there was incredible. But like the fact that this is what was produced was like super exciting.
Yeah. And for those of you listening that don't know what Sea Change is, it's an event that's in Vermont. It will be September 15th through 17th again next year, or 2026. Depending on when you're listening to this. And it's an incredibly valuable event. Is it an invite-only kind of event, Dave, if I recall? Or it's kind of...
Certain tracks are open, certain tracks are invite-only. So like this legislator track that we do is invite-only. I believe your packaging innovation track is also invite-only. But there are ways to be a part of it with some of the other tracks.
But certainly reach out to us if you're interested in attending, if you have something valuable to offer to that. We'd love to hear from you. Certainly reach out to Dave's team or our team at a New Earth Project or Atlantic Packaging. And Don Meek has put together that track for us, and it just did an incredible job.
You want to do the origin story? What do you think?
Yeah. Tell me about how did OPLN come to be, and why is it now pivoting to Circle?
So I used to run an expedition company, and we would take C-suite executives to Antarctica. We did a lot of like human wildlife conflict work in southern India. We would take groups to Zimbabwe around anti-poaching. It was amazing. A lot of senior management education. And this is back from 2015 to about 2018, 2019. This eventually morphed and turned into OPLN. And it was 2017, and I was in southern India. The plastic zeitgeist was just starting to blow. I mean, it was like every other page was plastic waste, plastic waste in albatross, plastic waste in wildlife. The turtle up the straw's nose. Boy in Slat was starting to do his thing with the Ocean Cleanup Project. It was literally, overwhelming. And I had a university professor introduce me to a friend of his in Delhi. And was over there. I was in Bangalore National Park. We were doing this tiger, elephant intensive for this Fortune 50 company. And I went on, I spent a day in Delhi just visiting the plastic waste crisis firsthand. I didn't know a thing. And we ended up in front of the Gazipur landfill, which was this giant mountain and I actually think the landfill might be closed now, but it was half of it was smoldering. The other half had hundreds of people. I didn't even know what a waste picker was. They had hundreds of people picking through it. It was just like sensory overload. And I called my co-founder and I said, we need to do something on the plastic crisis. And the next thing you know, we chartered a ship that was on its way from Antarctica to Greenland, because these Antarctica Greenland ships just go up and back and forth to the opposite seasons. And we got them to stop off at Bermuda in the Atlantic garbage patch, which is the North Atlantic garbage, which is in the Sargasso Sea, which is a really interesting place to see the ocean plastic crisis, because there's so much of the seaweed and all the plastic gets like mixed into the seaweed. They're out in the middle of the ocean. And we just decided it was a good idea. I had a few friends in the space that knew people, including Bridget Croak at Closed Loop. And we essentially, for the next year, I recruited 165 participants from the petrochemical industry all the way to the environmental NGOs. So, we had the American Chemistry Council and Greenpeace on the same ship, with WWF, most of the big players, and it just went absolutely incredible. It could not have been better, meaning like it was just really impactful. It was the right place and time. There were CEOs on the boat that needed to see this. We were 500 miles off the coast of Bermuda, snorkeling, for 2-mile deep water, pulling handfuls of plastic waste out of the ocean. One of the brand reps found 3 of her products floating in the middle of the ocean with the brand name on it that she was able to take back to her CEO. We had like grown men in tears, and it was on that. And at the time we just thought this was going to be a one-off expedition. And we also, we didn't have any advocacy agenda. We were just trying to get this group out to see it, and it was the right place and time. And it was the fact that we didn't have any advocacy agenda that really like gifted us this like neutral convening superpower that we have. Right. And we didn't know it at the time, but when we got back home, we knew something interesting happened out there, and we decided to form, it was called the Ocean Plastic Leadership Summit, and we just decided to form the Ocean Plastic Leadership Network. And we have 17 of the 24 companies that were out there with us became our first members, and that's how we started. And we were going to continue at the time doing these experiential expeditions, and then the pandemic hit 6 months later. So we were forced to morph very, very quickly, but that neutral convening superpower, WWF reached out to us and asked us if we would start convening neutrally around the Global Plastics Treaty. And that was like 5 or 6 years ago. And we started to do the Global Treaty Dialogues. It was online for 5 years or 4 years, I guess. We ran these around all the negotiations, all over the world. And we would, bring the petrochemical industry and the environmental NGOs and all the governments of the world together. So really, we did a lot of work here at home. We did work on reuse and refill. We did some we would secretariat groups on really hard to talk about topics. And some of that, was the early stages of the EPR work that I just mentioned. Oh, really? We, like advanced chemical and molecular recycling, we worked, which is really, highly controversial, between these ecosystem actors. But that's sort of to get full circle, and that circle, I didn't mean to use that pun, but that's where the circle program began, specifically going out to see deposit return systems and EPR systems. So, that idea of going to visit experientially and learn directly, is a part of our origin story, as is, having the ENGOs and the brands and the petrochems all, a part of the same, this is part of the same cohort. So It really happened quite accidentally, Cory. I got to be honest with you. I mean, feel very blessed to be able to, be useful in a space where there's, so many different opinions, and, we couldn't have scripted this in a business plan, not in a million years. So just very humbled and grateful to be able to do this work and to be able to work with such a great team.
I think a lot of those people, those leaders, feel like they're constantly having fingers pointed at them, like, this is your problem, this is your fault. And I think what you and your team did is said, hey, we're all in this. Let's take a break from that. Let's look at what the problem really is and how we can work together to solve it. Because I think, like you said, it got emotional, and I think we need to have an emotional connection with this issue to really be motivated to fix it.
Amen to that. And there's we're talking about systems change here, right? I mean, and with just so many pressure points on this system, right? And part of that is consumer ease, and part of that is disposal of materials, And I mean, like, it's interesting, like what you guys are doing at Atlantic on the innovation side and the material innovation side is really hard, but like so necessary, right? Like to start looking at these alternative materials and figuring out how to fit those into existing systems, and also the policy levers that come into that. It might be in a whole nother podcast, but like really applaud what you guys are doing at a New Earth Ventures, really looking at like the seaweeds and the chitins and like some of these materials that hold a ton of promise, but also need a lot of help from a lot of different places to bring them to life.
Yeah, well said. A lot of our customers are finally open to these ideas, and our team has the mindset of let's be ready. Let's have all the options available for when people are ready to move and are ready to pivot to a more sustainable option. Our team, Kyle leads our design team. He's just done an incredible job. Matt Saunders with the New Earth Ventures is it's taken off like crazy, and it's exciting to be a part of at Atlantic Packaging, all of these great things. So yeah, thanks for mentioning that. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Big fan of what you guys are doing, and yeah, and like Don Meek's vision for Sea Change. Literally, I remember when he first told me about Sea Change, and then I went and like we went a year before we actually brought our program there. And yeah, what was able to transpire there was like, yeah, again, like literally blew, my wildest dreams away. So like, just love that you guys are doing things that are really like against the grain. You just don't see a lot of that in
Thank you.
your industry.
It's a risk, but it's the right thing to do. And I think that's why I respect Wes Carter and the team that leads our company so much. Is they're willing to put their neck out there and just say, hey, we're going to do this, and it's the right thing to do, and our customers will appreciate it, and it's better for the environment and the next generations. And well done. So will you be presenting this new tool at Sea Change next year, or do you know yet?
Yeah, I mean, this tool is now like the bedrock education tool of our entire operation at Circle, right? Like, so, and the only way that I feel like it could have happened was through this organic way. This idea was born with literally every spoke of the value chain watching it happen in real time. So, but I mean, this is something that we're going to continue to iterate and build, and, so it's going to be a part of everything that we do moving forward. It's really, and just in the spirit of education, like in a perfect world, this is the kind of tool that you would use if you had a customer or somebody that you were trying to just educate or upskill on EPR. You could send them this to be like, these are all the pressure points, and these are where the different industry folks think about this. But also, obviously, like the North Star is for legislators. But yeah, if we have environmental NGOs that are using it to help educate their people, and industry folks using it to help educate their people. And that's, we had a lot of skeptics earlier because like, folks were like genuinely afraid that this could like be advocacy, and we cannot have it be advocacy. That's why it's like vital that we have all opinions a part of this, as contrary as they, right. we have to be. So yes, well, I will be presenting it at Sea Change next year.
I can't wait. I did want to thank you for introducing me to Senator Heidi Campbell. She was in your cohort at the event, and she was on the podcast talking about her Waste to Jobs EPR bill in Tennessee. Just incredible that a red state like that can move towards something very positive. It's exciting to see.
They're working very, very hard in Tennessee to make that happen. So we are I think it's fascinating the different language you need to speak in the South than you speak in the North. But there's an interesting economic resilience article around argument around circularity in the South, and about, supply chain resilience, and like aluminum is infinitely recyclable. And there's also tariffs on exported aluminum. And 80% of the aluminum that comes in is export. So there's all these different narratives. And then not too far off from the packaging recycling, like e-waste recycling and the critical minerals that you can mine out of our phones and computers, and like just how rapidly that's happening in China. So there's just a different narrative in the South that we're going to be doing a big Southern States convening next year. Really trying to talk to Republicans on their terms and really lead with what they need, and hopefully be able to like close education gaps, not advocate, but educate, and it's just important, really across the ecosystem, that everybody understands what's going on, and you talk to Southern states and conservation and just love of nature. And I think the way you talk about all of this is through clean rivers, or healthy, clean rivers, healthy soil, healthy oceans. It doesn't matter where you're coming from. You're going to get head nods on that front. And it's just so much easier than talking about some of these more polarizing lenses.
Well said. Well, how can people help, Dave? How can they reach out to you to be a part of this solution?
Well, I feel like the website, it will give a sense of what we're doing on the policy side. We're also doing a lot of work on readiness and implementation for big companies. Mm-hmm. So these companies that are now reorganizing internally for EPR compliance, I mean, it's a really heavy lift. Like we work with a Fortune 50 company that has like over 250 people that are designated to work on EPR in some way, shape, or form, right? Like to help, crosses legal, packaging design, so many different departments, accounting, finance, sustainability. It's like it's a really huge task to bring all this to life, especially with the differentiation in laws that are happening. So we're building readiness circles where we're bringing these multi-stakeholder groups together to help them learn from each other. We're working with a lot of the top consultancies. So that's one like key offering, like in additional to the policy work that we're doing are these readiness circles. So we're there to help on that front, and people can reach out to us. You can reach out to me directly at dave@opln.org. We're on LinkedIn. We try to put a lot of useful information out there. And yeah, we work with a lot of the big companies in the ecosystem, and we're just really trying to just be useful across the board on the policy side and on the readiness side.
Well, keep up the great work, my friend. I appreciate you coming on, and I'm sure we'll do another episode again soon.
Let's do it, my friend. Thanks, Cory. Have a really, really great rest of your day, my friend.